I'd like to welcome you to the Pasco School Board of Directors' regularly scheduled board meeting this evening. As always, these board meetings are open public meetings, and we record them for broadcast on Charter Cable TV channel 191. And you can also see these meetings if you go to YouTube and look up Pasco Schools. At times it may seem that the board is moving quickly with their decisions. You may see an example of that tonight. We had an extended conversation and healthy debate this afternoon on property purchase, and that will be discussed briefly. We'll discuss our opinions on that during action items this evening. But on issues like that, the board has had ample time to do their own independent research, solicit answers from district staff, talk to Ms. Whitney, like I said, and her staff, and get answers. So even though decisions like that may appear that the board's making them quickly, we've had plenty of time to research and do our own independent research. We strive to understand all issues brought before us and to make decisions that we believe are in the best interest of all students of Pasco and the taxpayers that provide funding. We're fortunate to have 3 student board representatives, all of them seated up here with us this evening. They cannot legally vote on issues, but they're a very important part of our team and the board's decision-making process. We're excited to have them on the board this year, and we're excited to take them in a couple of months to Bellevue with us for our annual conference, our state annual conference for all board directors throughout Washington State. And with that, we'll move on to the flag salute this evening. We have Curie STEM Elementary Principal Valerie Aragon here, along with her students.
Good evening, Superintendent Whitney, President Lehrman, distinguished board members. Super excited to be here this evening with you. We have 4 elements of change. Student leaders are here this evening. They'll lead the flag salute, and then we're going to talk to you a little bit about a project and why we select them to lead the Pledge of Allegiance this evening.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, how about before you guys give us your presentation, we'll have you state your name and what grade you're in, and if you have an ASB position or something else you'd like to tell us, and then go ahead and introduce any of your parents or family members that are here with you.
I'm Javi Hodek, and I'm a 6th grade student. And my mom is sitting next to Miss Oxford.
And we all know who Miss Oxford is, right?
Hi, I'm Victoria Rodriguez, and I'm in 6th grade, and my parents are sitting right over there. Hi, my name is Angelica Zaragoza, and my aunt is sitting over there.
My name is Jacqueline Garcia, and my sister is sitting over there.
This is the Save the Manatee project. Why save the manatees? We learned about the manatees in Miss Oxford's class, and that they were an endangered species that lived in Florida. After doing research about the manatee, we wondered if we could help the manatees because they were being killed by the boat because they were bleeding out.
Hello, Hello, my name is Jacqueline, and this is how we got started. While doing research, we discovered the Save the Manatee Club and that the club hosted an annual 5K run to raise awareness and money. We decided we would like to raise awareness at our school and host a run during recess. We presented our plan to Ms. Aragon to raise awareness and money to be donated to the Save the Manatee Club. Contacting the Save the Manatee Club. We called the Save the Manatee Club and told them our plans to help. The Save the Manatee Club offered free bookmarks, stickers, and a free calendars that we could offer as prizes for the run, as well as our community sponsors.
Community support. We wrote letters and sent them to local businesses. In the letters, we informed our local businesses about the need to support manatees and asked each business for a $5 donation. We had a goal of $50. We presented our plan at a ATP, or Mary Curie STEM Elementary School ATP meeting, explaining our purpose and asked to be a part of Family Fitness Night. Organization of the event. We developed a PowerPoint and presented to the whole school during 2 assemblies, telling all the students about the event. We organized run materials. We designed a display board for use at the event.
At the run, we raised $325.62. Special thanks to these donors: Jeff Scherer, Auntie Kai, DKB Inc., Balm Corporation, Jositos Landscaping, and our Curie students and staff. Any questions?
All right, so we'll have thank you students for sharing that with us and for being self-initiators in your fundraising here, and also for having a kind of spur-of-the-moment chance to practice our presentation skills. We were going to have them present before the board meeting to us, but we just ran out of time. So we'll have you come up to the front here, and you'll get a Pride of Pasco pin, and we'll take some pictures.
Awesome, good job. I'll get you his papers. I know her name was mentioned, but I'd like to thank Ms. Oxford. And presenting to the board is nothing, like they said. They presented over 800 students and to our ATP committee. So they were well prepared for tonight. And thanks to Mr. Flynn, too, who worked with the students in designing the PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you again. And students, remember, see the 3 girls that came up and presented you with those pins? They're our student board representatives. When you're in 11th or 12th grade, if you'd like to be involved in student leadership and helping your school and your fellow students have a voice, be sure to put in an application so that you can be a student board representative, and you'll get great leadership opportunities, and you'll get to learn about local government and some state and federal government. So thank you, parents, and thank you, Ms. Aragon and your staff, for bringing the students tonight. All right, next we'll move on to agenda item number 3, roll call. I'd ask Ms. Smith to call the roll.
Mr. Christensen?
Present.
Dr. Richardson?
Present.
Ms. Lankin?
Present.
Ms. Craig?
Present.
Mr. Lehrman?
Present.
Ms. Quitos?
Present.
Mrs. Phillips?
Present?
Mrs. Brooks?
Present.
This evening, we have no special recognition, so we'll move on to agenda item number 5, approval of meeting minutes from August 22nd, 2017. I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that we approve the regular meeting minutes for the August 22nd, 2017 meeting.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second to approve the regular meeting minutes from August 22nd, 2017. Those in favor, please say yes. Yes. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Regular meeting minutes from August 22nd, 2017 are approved. Agenda item number 6, we have the agenda review.
There are no changes or additions to the agenda, but I would like to call the board's attention to our request for an executive session under 4231.10(1)G. We're expecting it to take about 20 minutes, and we will be requesting no action.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney. Agenda item number 7 is audience comments. In just a moment, I'll invite the audience up to the microphone to address the board with questions or comments on any topics that you do not see as action items or reports or discussion this evening. Please try to limit your comments to 2 minutes. Also, if you have questions or comments on agenda items number 9 or 10, we'll give you an opportunity at that time to address the board on those topics. If you feel that the board is you'd like further dialogue with the board or further discussion on the topic you bring to the microphone, please ensure that your contact information is left in the left back corner of the room there, and we will have further discussion either in person or via email. Microphone is open at this time. All right, seeing that we have no audience comments, we'll move on to board communications, agenda item number 8, and we'll start with Dr. Richardson.
Thank you. Excited for school to get started, for my kids to be back in school. I'm not sure if they were more excited about school starting or when the ban on outdoor recess was lifted and they were able to go outside again. And I'm sure the teachers were grateful for that too, and we had better air quality on Friday. Super excited about the district's initiative in adopting Ready for Kindergarten. Very excited to sign up for that. Someone mentioned to me, oh, why are you signing up for that? You don't want to take a spot from someone. And that's not how this is organized. It's something that could reach everyone in our community. If we need more slots or more class times, we could certainly add that. It's really ideal timing. We just had our 6th child, and I'm excited to do the program for the next 5 years. For each year, there's 3 classes, so there's 15 total classes plus an additional one. I think that's kind of a prep one, and so I'm excited to participate the first 5 years as my youngest turns 5 and prepares for kindergarten. Last year, our kinder students, less than 10% of them were prepared adequately in all domains of development. We usually look at speech. That's the most obvious that we just kind of see when you talk to a child, but there's much more that goes into their preparedness. And most people feel their social emotional preparation is probably the most important for their kindergarten readiness. And so the need is great in Pasco, and this provides us an opportunity to reach every child that will be coming into our system. So thank you to all those that help make that happen.
I wanted to welcome everyone back to school. I visited several schools the first week of school, and it's always amazing to me how on the first day of school the kids are right into learning, and the teachers are so prepared, and the students are learning on the very first day of school. And congratulations to all of the teachers and how they worked at having and were able to have all of the students inside during the bad weather or smoke days or whatever you want to call it. That was, it's amazing that they can have them all inside, and everyone was prepared and doing well at having them inside. I know the kids were grateful to go outside on the Friday that they finally had somewhat of a smoke-free day or a clear day, as everyone was grateful for the clear day. But congratulations to all of the teachers and the staff for preparing and taking care of all of our kids. It was great that they handled that and had things for them to do during the recess. That's a terrific thing that they can handle that. Thank you.
So our long days are coming to a close, and we're moving into the fall season. And but one of the things about fall that I look forward to is football. So I had the opportunity to attend a couple of football games this past couple of weeks. Went to the Chiawana opener and then to the Pasco home game on Saturday. And I'm looking forward to getting into some of the schools this year and going and visiting some of our schools, seeing how things are going there. Next week, I will be attending the Legislative Assembly for the School Directors Association, so giving our input there for the upcoming legislative session and helping make some decisions there that hopefully we can get some good things done on the legislative side. So I'll report on that in a couple weeks.
I've been really enjoying our new building and New Horizons. Even though I only have one class there, it makes me sad because I go to Tri-Tech in the afternoon. But it's so nice, and we have a lot of new kids, but it doesn't seem as like crowded. Like there's a lot of more new people, but it's not as crowded as it was last year. And we're actually talking about how thankful we were for a new building when we had the smoke, because we would have been stuck outside if we were still in the portables. Like we had to line up for lunch outside last year, so that was nice. And I also enjoyed the back to school rally, which I wanted to add that Learman being in jeans was very shocking to a lot of the teachers at New Horizons. That was like a hot topic that day was, I can't believe Learman was wearing jeans. I've never seen him wear jeans.
These past 3 weeks, I went to the back to school rally as well, and I went to the first day of freshmen at Pasco High School. There's a lot of them, and it's crowded, but somehow with our new classrooms, it helped, and now it doesn't feel as crowded these last few days. And I like the school year so far. It's my last year, and all my classes are great.
These past 2 weeks have been going, well, 2.5 weeks have been going pretty well. I have 3 AP classes, which has been a little bit overwhelming, but I am glad that I got to experience it right now instead of going into college and jumping in and being overwhelmed out there by myself. So I have help here at the high school. I went to the first day for the freshmen, and before I went to my first day, and there's somewhere between 790 and 830 new incoming freshmen, so it has been overly crowded. Lunchrooms, classrooms, hallways, it's been something, but they provide like a new energy. They're a really great class to have, and we got a new rule. Our gym, our auditorium can only have so many people, and because we have around 2,800 students, we have a new opt-out rule, and not as many as you think, but a lot of students have been taking advantage of that, so it's kind of worked out. So that's how my first 2.5 weeks have been going. Thank you.
It's been a couple of busy weeks at the schools. It's been fun to be in several of them and to see the activity. And one of the schools that I went to said that they had a lot more school. It was an elementary school. They had a lot more children than they had anticipated. We did have quite a bit of growth this year, especially at the high school level. So that was a little bit surprising to have that much growth. I also attended the rally. I love it. It's an incredible thing to see all of the teachers in our district come together as one, and the energy and excitement that they have. It's been fun. I've been really excited to see the Ready for Kindergarten stuff also that has been out. I've seen it in several places, and my baby is 9, so he's not even there. And so I'm so glad that the information is getting out and hopefully is really effective. I substitute teach sometimes in Richland. I can't do it in Pasco School District because I'm a board member. So got to teach when they couldn't have recess, and seeing all those kids cooped up. They were begging to go outside for recess. It was really cute. It's amazing how important that physical activity is. But I taught a very young grade, and it reminded me of the importance of Ready for Kindergarten as I taught a couple of kids that their social and emotional growth is so affected by home. And sometimes as parents, we just need to know, we just need a little extra help. And I love Ready for Kindergarten. I'm one of those parents who wants to take as many, discipline and read as many books as I can because I know that if I have a tool bag, I can pull out the right tool for a different child. And I think those things are powerful to give to our kids. But giving them, starting them off with those social and social and behavioral skills is critical, and it's something that we can help provide them at home. And Ready for Kindergarten is great for that. I love football too, so it's been great to go to a couple of football games already and see the school spirit. And I especially appreciate the sportsmanship. And I'm especially disappointed when it's not there. So I hope as teams this year we can make sure that we realize what sports are really for and what they're about, and really work to work together and to be good sports.
I did attend the back to school rally in jeans, and I believe it or not, during my day job as an engineer, I sometimes even wear a hard hat and go into the field. So it was great, though. No, it was great. Congratulations to all of the teachers who won staff recognition awards, and we know that is a very, very, very small percent of teachers that. There's many other teachers out there, what I'm trying to say, that do just as much work or more than many of those teachers who won awards. So while we recognized a few teachers there, we know that almost all of our teachers are doing great work every single day. Not almost all of our teachers are doing great work every single day. And we'd like to give everyone awards. Ms. Whitney and I have discussed having a few meetings in the close future here where we recognize some teachers for other achievements that we have. So we'll continue to talk about that at agenda setting, and we'll make that happen. On Friday, I was able to go to Mark Twain and Rowena Chess, and I tried to visit as many of the fourth, 5th, and 6th grade classrooms at those schools as I could. So I see a couple of teachers here that I was able to visit. I know there's many other teachers that when we go to schools, we try to visit as many as we can. I caught some in the lunchroom. But just because you don't see us at your school doesn't mean we're not there. I think all the board members here would say that. We try to go see as many schools and many teachers as we can. And when we do see the teachers doing the great work that they do in the classroom, it validates the work that we're doing here. So thank you for sharing a few minutes with us when we come into your schools and into your classrooms. To remind the board, you got an email this week from Ms. Whitney asking you to fill out a board self-assessment by the 15th of September. What we're doing, Ms. Phillips volunteered to take first stab at the Board of Distinction application this year, and there's a tight deadline on that. So she's going to take a first cut at it. If you have any input, if you look at the application online and you'd like to provide her any ideas or input, I know she'd be open to that. Otherwise, she'll take a first cut at it. I'll look at it. And then we'll get it out to the rest of the board prior to signature before the deadline. Thank you, Ms. Phillips, for volunteering to do that. For those who don't know, probably a lot of you don't know, our board actually did win Board of Distinction Board of the Year last year for the state of Washington for large schools for student achievement, equity, and community involvement. So. we want to keep, even if we don't win major awards every year, it's good for us self-reflection to go through the application process and think about what we did. And sometimes it triggers things in our head that says, oh, we didn't do this last year. So it's also self-improvement for going forward. So again, thank you, Ms. Phillips.
I would just like to take this quick opportunity to introduce the newest member of our Pasco School District team. If I could ask Dr. Susana Reyes to stand up. Dr. Susana Reyes has joined us. Can we clap for her? She has joined us as Assistant Superintendent in charge of operations, and so we welcomed her last week at last week at a leadership council meeting, and we were all prepared to go around the table and introduce ourselves. Well, she had studied, and she knew all of everyone's names and what they did for the organization before we even had to introduce her. So certainly already feels like family and is already an extraordinary leader in our organization. We look forward to her work and efforts on behalf of the operational staff. So thank you for being here, and we're just super glad you're part of our team.
I am as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I also wanted to highlight tonight, I got communication from Mr. John Walwork, who is in Walla Walla, accompanying our girls swim team at the first ever Pasco School District swim meet in Walla Walla. So thank you. Yeah, that's awesome too. We're really excited about that. And I also wanted to echo a lot of the comments that the board already made about just the extraordinary opportunity that we have as organizational leaders to go out into our schools in the first few weeks of school. I've tried to be in at least 2 to 3 school buildings every morning since school has started, and it's difficult to explain unless you experience walking into a school in those first few weeks of school. There's an absolute magic that happens between students and teachers, and I feel such gratitude every day to get to witness and be a part of that. So I want to extend my gratitude to teachers, our administrative staff, our operational staff, who really, it's a Herculean lift to get kids into school in those first few days, and it's like they never left. They just fall back into the routine of learning and loving each other and loving their kids or their teachers. So thank you so much for everyone's efforts on our students' behalf.
Next, we have agenda item number 9, reports and discussion. Ms. Whitney will introduce our first presenter.
I'd like to introduce Ms. Sarah Thornton, Assistant Superintendent, who is doing a first reading on some board policy revisions.
Good evening, Board President Lehrman, Board Member Superintendent Whitney. Tonight I have several board policies for you for first reading that have to do with the provision of health services in the district. And I really do need to thank Vicki Wright and Susie Wells, who are our lead district nurses. They really do the heavy lifting with these board policies to ensure that we are up to date and that we're not just up to date with what the law and WASDA says we need to do, but also that we're consistent with our practice within the district. And so I've had quite a bit of interaction with them over the summer with regards to these policies. And this only represents about half of what they did this summer. We'll have more for you for first reading at the next meeting. I'm presenting to you Policy 3410, which is a general policy regarding student health, which is being updated with some minor edits. 3412, which is a new policy. We do have AEDs in our buildings, and since we do have those, we need to have a policy that establishes guidelines for their use. Policy 3413, student immunizations and life-threatening conditions, is being updated consistent with WASDA and state law. Infectious disease policy 3414 has language added concerning confidentiality of records, and that language that indicates we follow the local health officer's direction in cases of an outbreak, although they don't use that word in the policy. That's my word. Policy 3415, accommodating students with diabetes. This is also a new policy required by state law. And the medication policy 3416 is also updated with new language concerning topical sunscreen and nasal inhalers.
Thank you, Ms. Thornton. I have one quick question on 3416. What is it, state law that requires us to talk about topical sunscreen and nasal inhalers, or what drove that one?
State law does not. There have been changes to state law. So 3416. Let me. I'll pull that up for you real quick. 3416 allows For the provision, previously topical sunscreen was considered a medication because it's regulated by the FDA, and so it was required to be administered with permission of the parent by authorized school staff. The change in the law allows students to carry sunscreen that their own parents or guardians provide to them and apply it themselves without that having to fall under the regular medication policy. The nasal inhaler policy, this is specific language that's necessary for primarily for students who are prone to epileptic seizures. There's a type of medication that can be administered through nasal inhaler, and there's some very specific requirements around what that looks like.
So both federal law?
State law.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board to Ms. Thornton?
I just want to comment briefly. Thank you for the information on the policy about immunizations. This is an area, I know I've joked before that California doesn't do a lot of things right, but they did do something very important around immunizations in their public schools, and that was that they eliminated philosophical exemptions from vaccines, noting that it's a public health risk. And at my day job, I'm a pediatrician, and immunizations are an area that we're very involved in. And I just as a heads up, that's something I intend to lobby our state to change, because it's a true risk, and we've had outbreaks here in the Tri-Cities in the last couple of years, and that is something that may be changing in our state. Also, that I noticed that the Meningococcal Vaccine, which can be given at age 11, that will probably become required. I think it should be. In our state, it is already in many states. It's a battle. This kind of gets me into the legislative area of Mr. Christensen, but those are two areas that I see changing that I will be in favor of at my job in lobbying our state to change.
For the policy for student health, 3410, for the vision and hearing screenings, will that be applied to the high school students as well?
That's a question that I'm going to have to get back to you on, Kristana. Typically, the vision and hearing screening occurs at the elementary level, but it's administered by the nursing staff.
Okay.
So with that example, I saw this earlier, was it a law before that scoliosis screening was required, and that was removed this year? Okay. That's been a law for quite a while, right?
It's being removed this year. I can't quite tell you how long ago it was removed from the law. The policy's old.
Okay. All right, thank you, Ms. Thornton. Any other questions or comments from the audience to the board at this time on these policy revisions? All right, thank you, Ms. Whitney. Would you like to introduce the next report?
It is my great honor to introduce to you Executive Director Carla Lobos, who is going to be in front of the board tonight doing our 2017 enrollment report. And before Carla begins, she'll give a number of credits and thank yous to the people who helped her through the beginning of school. And I want to personally recognize Carla for her great leadership and efforts in getting school up and running. And she provides leadership for the process in identifying overloads and where buses go and where the kind of hot spots for class sizes are. And it's an extraordinary body of work that she does a phenomenal job with in partnership with some of the people that she'll also recognize.
I'm going to try to recover from this coughing fit. So, excuse me. Board President Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, members of the board, it's my pleasure to be with you this evening. So I am here to give you the very much anticipated enrollment report for this year. I know we've already started talking about numbers and as people have been out and visiting schools. So as you may be aware, we have our first count date both in September and in October. And it is the fourth school day in September and the first school day in October as well. So before we look at those numbers, and we're going to look at those numbers by grade level, the enrollment, the actual bodies, student count, and we're also going to look at them by school. Excuse me. But what I'd like to point out before we do that is that The numbers that you're going to see are reflective after many changes have taken place. And one of the things that I'd like to also share with you is that we've worked with building principals and transportation who have both done an exemplary job of addressing our overloads at our various elementary sites so that those kids could start at their designated school prior to the start of the school year on the very first day, or if they entered after the start on their very first day, so that there didn't have to be a transition of starting at one school and then at the next school. So, and we have various bus routes and various locations, and those were all in place when kids started this year. So a team of district admin meet every day the first 2 weeks of school, and we review those enrollment numbers at our various schools, at our elementaries and our high schools and our middle schools, and we make those adjustments. So these are, it'll give you time to look at the numbers and give me time to breathe. So these are the numbers by grade level for elementary in the district. And this is a comparison of this year in comparison to last year. Thank you. Smoke is not as kind to those of us with asthma. As you can see, some are a slight increase, and in some instances that we may see, there may even be a slight decrease. So this is our enrollment by school as well. And again, you're going to see in some places where there may be a surprise, where we see a slight increase, and in other schools a slight decrease. Now, keep in mind, at the elementary there is adjustment based on overloads, and so this is the count of those bodies of the kids that are there. Oops. And these are the remaining elementary buildings in a comparison from 2016 to 2017. So these are the secondary numbers, and again, these are middle and high school numbers by grade level in a comparison of last year to this year on the September count. And again, you're going to see some increases and some decreases, which is interesting. And again, as kids roll up from one grade level to the next, you're going to see that some cohorts or students are larger than others. And then we have our enrollment by school, beginning with our middle schools. And you can see McLaughlin has the biggest increase. And then our enrollment comparison from last year to this year for our high schools. So this is our overall enrollment, and this is, this is our body count of how many students actually showed up in our schools for our elementary, middle, and high school, with our total for this year for, as of September 7th, 18,033. Now I say head count because our total head count growth on September 7th this year was an increase of 464 students, which is equivalent to 2.6%. But an important thing to note is those students, so those are actual bodies, so 464 bodies of kids. We say the whites of their eyes. We tell principals you have to make sure the whites of their eyes are sitting in those seats to count them. But if a student, for example, may be attending half-time, so if you have a high school student that maybe is only there half-time, or a middle school student that's only there half-time, they only count as a 0.5 FTE. So what we look at is, here we have our actual 464 bodies of kids that showed up, but the total FTE in growth on September 7th was equivalent to 324, which is an actual student increase of 1.88%. Okay. So I just want to point out that difference, because bodies doesn't necessarily equivalent, it's not necessarily equivalent to 1.0 unless a student is there all day. Okay.
Does this include IPAL as well?
It does include, again, it depends on how long or how much time that they're there, but yes, it would include that. And that's why you saw IPAL on the enrollment as well, so yes. And again, it would depend on how much time the student is there, what the equivalent of their FTE is.
How does the state of Washington, I know the paper showed us like at 17,800 or something. How does the state of Washington, do they count the 18,000 or do they count the FTE? How do they say what size our district is?
Well, we report the FTE for funding purposes. I guess that would be a question I would have to ask in terms of if we report the well, we do enroll the students, so we actually have the head counts because we have to monitor those kids depending on what they're enrolled in, but we do report the FTE to the state. But you're talking like OSPI webpage, the total number of students. Yeah, that is a good question. I will get you an answer. So just to give you a comparison from last year with regard to that head count and that FTE, last year's head count was 310 students, but our FTE was 395 students, which was 2.35%. And much of that was because of halftime kindergartners that were bodies that were 0.5 that then rolled over into 1.0. So we had the opposite scenario where we had fewer bodies and then a higher FTE count for that reason. If that makes sense. Are there any questions about enrollment?
Thank you, Ms. Lobos. Any questions or comments from the board to Ms. Lobos?
Thank you. I'll just say it confirmed all my fears and what I knew would be true. The numbers we were given as the best estimate said we would decrease elementary students by 50. We increased by 100. Our secondary is even more frightening. We increased by roughly 400 students. I think that supports what we've been discussing for the last year or two, that we need a much more aggressive facility plan where we're planning for that growth. I mean, we're already so many years behind, so I'm very pleased that it supports our aggressive facilities plan that we've tried to initiate with our proposed bond measure.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Thank you. And kids don't always show up exactly where you have the space, so and that's the anticipation of looking at those overloads, which our principals and transportation did a great job. Are there any other questions I can answer for you?
Questions or comments for the board from the audience on this report?
They're taking it easy on me because I'm coughing and I can't breathe, so thank you, I appreciate it.
All right, moving on. Ms. Whitney, would you like to introduce our next report?
It is my pleasure to introduce to you Assistant Superintendent Eric Bowles, who's in charge of all things instruction. He's back in front of the board tonight to talk about our continuum, or continue to talk about our continuum of instruction, this time focusing on those things on our continuum that have to do with intervention, and also to highlight some initiatives around special education services.
So, good evening, Board President Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, and members of the board. I'm pleased to be presenting tonight on a continuum of services offered in our district for learners who are needing extra support. This presentation is the second of a series of reports detailing PSD's continuum of instruction and intervention. And just like last time, I wanted to start and highlight the operational expectations set in place by the board through the board governance model. We appreciate the expectations. They provide clarity for us and direction in terms of how we do our work moving forward. So I've got to click this, I think, for animation to see, oops. Try the other click. There we go. So we refer to this as the diamond of instruction in our district, and what's unique about the way Pasco looks at the model is we really look at the model through the lens of the individual student, the left representing acceleration and the right representing remediation and ultimately special education services. There, we got it all. This presentation should connect a lot of dots this evening, specifically showing how our interventions support access to our core instruction and how interventions are tied to eliminating student deficits. And further, it'll show how our systems, including the Pasco curriculum guides, the district assessment system, will increasingly work in concert to positively inform the impact of instruction on our students' achievement. So in the next several slides, I'm going to provide just some highlights around some of our efforts in intervention, both in reading and mathematics, and then the meat of the report will really focus on the work that we're doing as a seamless, in the context of a seamless intervention group. We've had a pretty significant work group convened working on our intervention practices since last January, and then ultimately some work that started in partnership with PAE on June 1st around looking at our special education processes and how we can improve our special education delivery systems and communication mechanisms in the district. So here we go. Moved a little bit too quickly. I wanted to highlight some work, and I provided a couple of handouts. Wanted you to be able to refer to the brown handout this evening. Under the leadership of Carla Lobos and Marissa Morales and a number of our reading recovery teachers, we really started some work over the last year inventorying just what interventions do we have in the district. And it might sound like that's kind of a strange thing, but in my experience, it's something that's really necessary. Intervention materials are kind of purchased at times when money is available, and so really taking the first step in identifying what we have in our system K6 in terms of interventions that we can bring to bear. As you can see, you've got, and this is the information that you have in front of you is just a snippet from our third grade work. The first page is actually a list of all the interventions that we have available across the district in third grade. Each of these interventions are not necessarily available in each building. And then the back page describes the analysis that the group did in terms of looking at the efficacy around the interventions. So this was really a very time-intensive and exacting process in terms of going out, identifying what was in buildings, and then doing some work around the efficacy and the purpose of those intervention materials. It's really the first phase of a number of work, or a lot of work that we need to do moving forward. One of the other things that we'll be looking at is, so what should each building have in terms of a floor series of intervention materials? And do the materials that we have really meet that need? We've got a lot of places that we can go look now, fortunately, around the evidence base and contrast what we have in our buildings with the best of what's out there. And so that'll be really the next phase. We approach this work a little differently, K6, than we did in 712, and I'll speak to the 712 work next. But both approaches really provide us a nice template in terms of moving forward and making sure that we've got interventions aligned to our core curriculum. So also wanted to highlight that our assessment committee, again, a PSD, a PAE joint committee, facilitated by Sally McNair, Shelley Hatch, and Maria Lee. Sally McNair comes to us from WEA. Maria Lee is one of our district's teachers, and Shelley Hatch is one of our district administrators. Did a lot of work to provide us an assessment system that will ultimately inform which of our students in what pockets really have the need for intervention and allow us to monitor the progress that we're doing over time. So that work that happened last year as well and is continuing into this work, and I know you got a great report from Shelley on the assessment committee process last time, also really informs this work moving forward. And then I'll speak more to, we had 82 teachers and and administrators convene last January 18th to really identify what was it we needed to work on next in Pasco in terms of ensuring that our intervention processes were both tied to our core curriculum and seamless in nature. So a lot has gone on over the last year. So one of the ways this impacted us at the secondary level was we had a reading intervention at the secondary level titled Read 180. I wanted to highlight Read 180 specifically because it's the only intervention that is identified for positive effects by the Institute of Education Sciences. And you can find more information if you just query the What Works Clearinghouse. But the Fed has very, very high standards for interventions, and the district invested very wisely in this particular intervention. We saw really great results, particularly in the second half of the year, with our Read 180 intervention, and a number of really great things happened. Our teachers were able to access systematic training over the course of the year, and Houghton Mifflin Harcourt had a real vested interest in seeing Pasco maximize that particular intervention, and at their expense came and did quite a bit of training for both teachers and principals, and we followed up with systematic access to one of our teachers on special assignment and a fair amount of training. We saw significant jumps, particularly in the second half of the year, in terms of students making progress. It wasn't uncommon across all sites to see students who had really struggled as readers make more than a year's growth in a year's time in this particular intervention. And that's a credit, again, I think, to the fine work of our teachers in that context. So wanted to talk just a little bit about the state of math interventions at the elementary. One of the interventions that we have is a suite by a company called Origo, and it provides discrete skill instruction around a variety of concepts that are really critical in building toward math fluency. We will be working this year both in math and in 712 to identify and inventory our interventions, much like you saw in K6 reading. So we have that work moving forward. I think that review process, what we were able to learn through reading in K-12 by really intensifying both the professional development and also inventorying the resources is something that will really carry forward in math as we move into this next year. And I wanted to highlight just two interventions at the secondary level in math real quickly. Intensified Algebra was purchased in the context of our most recent instructional materials adoption. And intervention materials are often designed to do two things, maybe one thing or the other, sometimes two things in concert. Sometimes we're just looking to fill an identified deficit. So I might show up and I might not be very fact fluent, so we work on improving my fact fluency. Once we fill that deficit, then I'm good to go. In other cases, particularly at the secondary level, I may show up in 7th or 8th grade with skill levels around the 3rd or 4th grade level. And in order for me to catch up and be able to access that core content, I need to be in a class that provides an accelerated opportunity. So filling my deficits, but simultaneously really accelerating my content knowledge so that I've got a hope of catching up to the core. So Intensified Algebra was purchased and implemented last year. It has a fine track record of doing that work, and we'll know more about the efficacy of its implementation over this next year. And then also wanted to highlight Math 180. Math 180 is for students at the secondary level that have not quite the same skill level as our kids who may be accessing Intensified Algebra, and provides real robust opportunity for remediation, much like its sister intervention, Read 180. So one of the things that really excites me about being in Pasco and being a small part of this work is the extraordinary level of enthusiasm at all levels across the district to develop a system of support. It's a common area of interest for our teachers, for administrators, and certainly in the best interest of our students. So I wanted to highlight how we got started here with our seamless intervention work last January. Susan Sparks, Suzanne Hall, and Carla Lobos led a group of teaching, itinerant staff, and administrators through a compression planning activity to determine the most critical areas in our system to address in order to build toward a seamless intervention system. The facilitation provided consensus top ideas, and many of the ideas coincided with the work already underway in the district around curriculum alignment, delivery of intervention, and assessment. So it was nice that what we wanted to work on as the year materialized, we had committees and momentum actually already really moving forward in many of those directions. So we took the top ideas, and then over the summer, I'll refer here to the gray packet. I think this is the color gray. I should know, but my wife's an art teacher, but if it's not gray, it's the one that's not brown. So over the summer, we took a look at our top ideas and wanted to make sure that, so is what we want to do in terms of moving towards a seamless intervention system in Pasco really congruent with what's out there nationally? So you've got in front of you a rubric on what it looks like to implement response to intervention through the American Institutes for Research. So over the summer, Carla, Suzanne, and I spent some time designing an activity to take a group, and we had a number of teaching staff that we added to the group working in collaboration with PAE to identify more teacher stakeholders to make sure that we had kind of a balanced voice in the room. Looking at our top ideas with what the American Institutes for Research said about what are the real key implementation components. And then just recently, after the smoke cleared and school started, Carla and Suzanne and I were able to sit down and take our top ideas matched up with each facet of the rubric. So we've got a really nice implementation plan that's tied to the best of the research base in terms of moving this work forward. So that's where we are right now in that process. Another thing I should add is that that group, again, is a collaborative facilitation. You'll see Carla and Suzanne and myself all taking part in doing that work, but we're also working with some subject matter experts out of WEA. Sally McNair, who helped us so ably with the assessment, is also working with this group. And then Molly Bosch, who is a technical assistance provider in special education out of WEA, is helping us both with the seamless intervention group and with some work in special ed that I'll talk about actually this next slide coming up. So that was a pretty good unintentional segue. So on June 1st of 2017, I had the opportunity to go and just listen to grassroots feedback at PAE from special educators who shared what they felt were really the strengths and growth opportunities for our district in terms of our special ed work. We took the feedback, and I met with a number of PAE folks over the summer, and then was able to reach out to, again, Molly Bosch from WEA to determine what we really wanted to do with that feedback. And we were able to convene on August 11th a group of PAE educators, mostly special educators, a couple of general educators who are interested in participating in the process, and our special education administrative team. And we jointly determined that what we wanted to work on over the course of the year, this year, was the evaluation. And evaluating particular high needs programs in special ed is really fraught with all kinds of interesting scenarios. I've been fortunate enough in my career to work kind of both sides of that issue, being a principal and also being a special ed director at various times. Identifying whether a teacher's doing a great job in a life skills room is really in many respects not anything like what it might look like in a general ed classroom. So, working on, how do we build capacity across our system, both at the teacher and administrative level, so that evaluation is really a rich and appropriate experience. Providing providing more systematic professional development for both our teachers and our paraprofessionals, and the feedback from our teachers was really strong on we need to make sure that we have more opportunities for our paraprofessionals, and then working on communication climate and transparency issues is our charge for the year. On September 18th, which is just coming up next week, a group of special ed administrators, PAE teachers will be working with Molly Bosch from WA to determine what that next step in the activity will be moving forward now that we've selected those key items to work on across the year. So we've covered a lot of ground, and then again, I want to make sure that we really reconnect all the dots that are available to be connected here, because it can seem like a lot of this work is happening in isolation, and really retooling a district's assessment system is a huge undertaking just in and of itself. But connecting curriculum, instruction, assessment, and ensuring that we're intervening in the appropriate context, I think you'll see very clearly that all these things are nicely coming together and will continue to come together over the next year. And having the assessment system that we have in place is going to really allow us to monitor and adjust, and not in a gotcha kind of way, but really in a way where, oh my gosh, we're seeing a lot of students come into school here or in this grade level, or we've had a number of students move in that are showing certain deficits. So we should be able to better and more intentionally target our resources over time, the more aligned our assessment systems are with our curriculum and instruction opportunities. So I'd just like to conclude by thanking you for allowing me to present on our work around seamless intervention. I've been tasked to do this work, but it's an area of passion for me, so it's really great when those two things intersect. Just personally, it's complex work that requires, I think, a multi-year commitment on all sides and an unwavering focus. And I think we're setting an incredible foundation to be the best support we can be for our teachers and for our children in ensuring each child receives a world-class education. So, thank you.
Questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Bowles. Questions or comments for Mr. Bowles from the board?
Thanks so much. I actually missed one of the things I wanted to talk about during the communications because it has to do with special education, and completely forgot it. But this year they started for parents, I think, of children, I could be wrong on this, but parents of children in self-contained classrooms. They had them go to school late, and they were able to meet with and the parents were able to meet with the teachers. And I have a child in a self-contained classroom and was so appreciative of the fact that I got to give them that update. That's another step and a direct response to the parents and community that had that meeting, I believe, last fall, the parents expressing needs that they wanted to be more involved. This goes hand in hand with that in really narrowing in and focusing in on our kids, what they need, the best results for them, the things that are going to get them the best results, and making sure that these programs are accessible throughout the whole entire district instead of just at select schools. So I applaud your work with that. That is incredible. Anyway, these are the kind of things that are happening in our district that are going to propel this district forward. And I appreciate the team effort because I know this has been it has been a concern of the district, the teachers, the parents, and we're all working together, and I really think that there's going to be some great changes. I want to see those numbers. You referred to numbers a few times about, we saw this in Read 180. When you have a child that is struggling in school that makes more than a year of growth, that's phenomenal. Because sometimes, anyway, it's a great thing. So I would love to see how well this Read 180 is doing. I'd love to see the numbers before we had it in and after, and because this district is about kids succeeding, and that success will look different for every single child, but all kids can succeed, and we just have to get them to where they are accomplishing and doing their very best. So I appreciate that, and you did a great job, and I love seeing things like this that take something that we know we could improve on, and we improved it, and hopefully we're going to see great results. So I want more numbers, and hopefully next year when we do this, we'll even see more growth. So thank you so much.
You bet. And in response, I'd like to provide kudos to Tracy Wilson, whose brainchild was to really replicate the WAKIDS model at the front end for special education programs. And I agree with you. I think it's an absolutely great step in connecting parents to teachers. And, you know, boy, the more we have to get to know each other, the more we generally find we like each other, I think. So I think that was an absolutely great step, and Tracy absolutely deserves kudos for that. I can, in my next board update, put together a series of numbers around the Read 180 intervention, particularly, and I'll look pre-post, and the numbers are really impressive in terms of the numbers of kids who are in treatment that really successfully responded, and we saw that really accelerate from January to June. So that'll be no problem. I'll make sure I address that in my next board update.
So, yes, and perhaps that could be a data bite that Mr. Bowles could present to the school board, some data around Read 180.
And I could do that too. Yeah.
Thank you, very exciting, and I appreciate what you said when we were talking about the literacy interventions we have, looking at what we have and what are we using, but most importantly, what works, you know, making sure we're evidence-based in what we're doing, and in helping some of my children with their math, I realized, you know, if you're struggling in reading, math starts to become difficult, and a child that started out pretty good at math becomes frustrated as they get and further progress. I've seen some teachers nodding their heads, because it becomes, when we try to apply math to the real world and story problems and things that are practical, if you're struggling with reading, suddenly math becomes difficult. And so that reading is just, anything we can do to help that is just so essential.
Thank you. I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Bowles. I had a question for you. I know this presentation was on remediation, the first part of it, but I had a question because I think enrichments go hand in hand with it. Sometimes we send students to another school, we send them to Spectrum or something like that, but I know we've been talking the last few years about increasing enrichment opportunities in the classroom, and I go into the classrooms and all the teachers do an exceptional job when there's remediations going on. Sometimes there's a para in there and you got four or five different groups, and I don't even know how they keep their classroom managed when this is going on. But I know, are the teachers getting all the support they need there? Because I have heard stories, a little kid was telling me at the end of last year, telling me how great they were in math, and you know, I go through and I got letters A to Z that I need to pass on quick math this year, and I got to Z, but the next closest kid to the class was on like T or something, so 6-7 letters behind. And I saw him later, did you get different worksheets? No, I didn't get, and there was like more than a month left in school. So sometimes, not to say that anyone tries to teach to the lowest common denominator, but are all the teachers getting all the support they need to help those kids that need enrichment during the time when others are getting remediation? And I know that work's being done. I know we're doing our best, but is there, and it might be a presentation for a later time. I'm not asking you for an answer right now. I can talk to Ms. Whitney if it's a presentation for a later time.
Yeah, and I think either presentation or a series of board updates, you're absolutely right. We did a lot of work with our teaching staff, the community. We brought in some experts who have worked in the region for a while from Whitworth to really take a look at what are the in-class opportunities or the in-school opportunities for kids that are on, moving toward that left side of the continuum. Our discussion in the presentation I gave the first time really ended up focusing mostly on the secondary level, but I can certainly collaborate with Ms. Lobos at a future time in relatively short order and talk about that work and the rollout and where that's all headed.
Perfect. I appreciate it. Yeah, those enrichment opportunities for kids that aren't going to other schools is key also, along with remediation is very important too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comments from the audience to the board on this report? All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 10A. Would you like to introduce that, Ms. Whitney?
So welcome Mr. Nunemaker to the podium, who is going to present an action item for us regarding a property purchase.
Board President, Mr. Lehrman, Superintendent Whitney, and board members. The district brings forward agenda item number 10A to obtain board approval to purchase property. The property is 21.69 acres of vacant land located north of Burns Road between Road 90 and Road 92. The cost for the parcel is $1,154,954.50, including all fees. The district recommends and asks the board to approve the property purchase of Franklin County tax parcel 115-170-070.
Thank you, Mr. Nunemaker. So the board had extensive discussion on this earlier this evening in a study session. So I think what I'm going to do here is open up the microphone. We'll start with Dr. Richardson, give each board member, if they'd like, a chance to summarize their thoughts and what they discussed at the study session this afternoon, and also ask you if they have any additional questions at that time.
Sure, I'm happy to start that. Is it possible to pull up part of their presentation, the pros and the cons page, maybe? Thank you, Mr. Garrett, if you can help with that. I'm definitely in favor of this. The district brought forth a good presentation illustrating the pros and cons of this. They feel that, from my understanding, what I heard is that the 40 acres would be doable, but it would be tight, and they're recommending that we add space to that. I would be in favor of earmarking 5 to 10 of those acres and seeking a partnership with the Pasco, or the city of Pasco, to develop a park there. I think not only is that creates an area that is maybe more suitable to what we need. I don't think we need all 60 acres, but it also provides us the opportunity to expand our partnership with the city of Pasco in a positive way. I'm also in favor of considering putting on some of that property, and the district has this in their background for this, more flexibility with considering another program at that on that site, perhaps a homeschool partnership or some other program where we could add additional flexibility by having that property. I don't really see a downside to it. If we, in our discussions and in our work with the city of Pasco and in discussing potentially using a little bit of that space for another one of our programs or expansion of IPEL, we could certainly sell off the land in the future and at no loss to us. Financially, it's very, it would be recommended. It's a favorable price right now for us to purchase it, and it will not strap us in any way where this isn't putting us in a position where we can't do the other things that we need to do. And so I'm definitely in favor of this. And I don't know if, maybe you can answer this, Mr. Nunemaker, if we can add a stipulation to the motion or give that direction or vote on that direction or modify the motion, but I would be in favor of seeking a partnership potentially with 5 to 10 acres of that. I'm fine if that's too tricky. I'm fine just voting on this with that idea or that direction or discussion that we would seek that some type of partnership.
I think we'll keep it simple this evening and vote on it, yes or no. And then if the board or someone on the board would like to bring that topic for further discussion on how the land is used at a later date, we can work with Ms. Whitney and talk about that.
I'm in favor of purchasing the property also. I think that it gives us more flexibility by having the 60 acres. And the price that we can purchase it at, it's a good price for us for now. And if we don't use the property, we can sell it in the future if we need to. But I think that for us, for the Pasco School District, I think it's a good purchase.
So first of all, thank you, district staff, for pursuing this, for taking a look at it and being responsive in this. I am not in favor of this purchase, and not because, I mean, I agree that certainly it gives us greater flexibility. We've had this discussion. If we live in a 6,000 square foot home versus a 4,000 square foot home, we have greater flexibility. It's great, but it comes with a cost. Would it be nice to have a little more room on those lots? I think it would. I think, personally, I think a 25-acre middle school is a good-sized middle school. McLaughlin is 28 acres. They've got lots of fields out there. They've got lots of portables out there. Eliminate the portables, we get more field space. So I don't think we're necessarily going to get more classroom space. We're just going to get more field space. I'm not sure that should be our goal right now. In fact, I don't think it should be. I think our focus should be on getting the properties we need where we need them, so we can put the schools that we need where we need them. This is a $1 million purchase. It's more than $1 million. Then we've got to develop this land. Then we've got to maintain this land. This is another burden that we're going to have to deal with. Can we do it? Sure. But one of the things that just in this last bond, we had to go back and whittle off several projects because we wanted to get that bond down to a certain number. Now we're going to take some of that money and add an additional 20 acres to a site where maybe it's not ideal, maybe it's not perfect or as nice as we'd like it, but certainly it's sufficient. I would think that 12 acres or 25 acres for a middle school and 15 acres for an elementary school is a good-sized plot. I'm going to ask some of our elementary schools who are on less than that if they think that 12 acres would be great or 15 acres would be great. I think they would say that would be wonderful. So while certainly it's an opportunity, we can take advantage of this. My concern is if we buy this, we're going to feel like we have to use it. There are other opportunities out there, maybe not right now, but will come up that we need to spend our money on to buy properties where we need them. So I am not in favor of this. I appreciate the work. This is not in any way intended to be a reflection on your recommendation, but I believe we would be better stewards of our money to seek property in another location where we can build truly community schools rather than one really big school on one really big site. So I am not in favor of this and would encourage my fellow board members to consider that as they cast their vote.
Student board reps, you weren't able to attend the study session this evening. If you want to say anything, you can before Ms. Phillips goes. If not, we'll move on to Ms. Phillips.
I didn't go to the study session, but he was talking about how it would just give us a lot more field space, and I actually did go to McLaughlin, and I do remember there was a lot of field space. Like, they have a pretty big field there. But most of it was cut off to us. Like, we could only go so far into the field, so it's like, what's the point in having this like great big field if we can only go so far, you know?
Well, Pasco High, we don't have a lot of field space, so it's tempting. And with that space, like, I forgot his name, Aaron? Dr. Richardson said you could use that space for other things that could benefit the students.
Scrolling through the PowerPoint or earlier, was there an image of what you guys were thinking about doing with this? Can we go to that quickly?
Can we go to the side by, did we have a side by side? We got two different ones here.
That's 40 acres, and that's the 60 acres.
So with the 40 acres is what you guys originally planned, and then the extra 20 was what could be added, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Thinking.
I mean, it does look good, and and I think a lot of Pasco School District students would take advantage of it, but how often? Because I know that I see the baseball field and the tennis court, and I know personally at my school, we have a smaller football field. Well, I don't know if you would consider it that, but smaller football field and a track, and then we have a whole kind of semi-sized field and tennis courts and stuff. But the only people who really take advantage of those things are the people who play sports. So I don't know if they would be put to as much use as we want them to. So
I feel like having more field space would be more better like in a high school than a middle school, because I feel like it would be more useful in high school. Because, I mean, like I said, when I went to McLaughlin, we weren't really allowed to go that far into the field. Like, we couldn't go past the last portable, and they didn't even like us going that far. There would be, like, yard duties out that would be like, you need to come in closer, you know, like, where we can watch you. So it's like, I feel like it would kind of be a waste of space to have so much field space, and then later on not let the kids access it unless it's, like, for an hour in PE or something. So, I don't know.
So if that extra space, if there's a plan for something that more students could use, like Angel said, then yeah, I think students need it. I know Stevens doesn't have maybe a track, and when their track team has a meet, they have to go somewhere else. So it could be useful for the sports. And I know a lot of people from the community go to Edgar Brown Stadium to run. Maybe the people who live nearby there could use that space as well.
I'm actually in favor of this as well. I do appreciate Mr. Christensen's viewpoint on the fact that we need to be very concerned with our taxpayer dollars and to use them as wisely as we can. Land is hard. It seems like it shouldn't be with all this farmland, but it's hard to get within the urban growth area. And so this is an ideal opportunity to get that. And I also have seen Chiawana and actually over by Ochoa and stuff, and the fields and things over there. You know, it's not just about the families that live there. My kids travel all over. I know that we've had to go to Kennewick to play games with my Little League kids because there's not enough space. I think there's a point of adequate, a point of ideal, and a point of excess. I think we need to be really careful to stay out of that excess. But I think we do need to get our kids into a point of ideal if we can. And so having adequate space is critical. And I feel like 40 acres would be a little bit tight for both the elementary and middle school. I feel like we could use some more room. So I think we should do this because it's a good price. It gives us more options, and I think in the long run it might even be financially a wash, especially if we ended up selling off some of that land. I think we need to be very wise, good stewards of this property, and put on there what we need and what the community needs, because I think that that's something the schools can do as well. A partnership with Parks and Rec and putting a park on that would be wonderful. I also know when you take raw land like this and start to put roads in it and do all of that, pretty soon your this acre site becomes a smaller site because the roads do take some of that out. You really can't count those. So I want that taken into account. I think we should do this, but I also think that we need to be conservative in the way that we use the land and make it an ideal property for our kids and leave space for future uses, because if we can use it for, for a future homeschool connection place, for a future preschool, for things that could really benefit our community, I think we need to kind of figure that in to this area, or let's sell off 10 acres and they can put a subdivision there, and we'll probably recoup more of the costs. They're going to put subdivisions everywhere anyway. We might as well. So I think there's lots of things that, and we could even recoup all of our costs. There's lots of things that we could do with this property. It gives us options, and as rare as property is and hard as it is to come by, I really think it's an important opportunity to take advantage of.
I heard several of my fellow board members say we could sell off some of the land later. I think what we have here is a preliminary plan for the schools, and what it looks like is all of the land is used, it'd be difficult. I mean, I don't think we'd want to develop that land, put play fields, put grass on it, and then decide to sell it off later. I also, like some of the students said there, question whether the extra land would even be used. If we have an elementary school there, we're not going to want our kids going off to the far boundaries of a 60-acre property, so I imagine they're going to be kept pretty close there. Middle schoolers don't have recess. So while I like this, it looks nice, I think it's maybe I would consider it a luxury. If we go back to the 40 acres, it's nice. I look at this and say, wow, there's a couple soccer fields on there, there's 3 baseball fields, there is a track here, just like there is on the 60 acres. I also think that hopefully we get some kinds of efficiencies if we're going to put 2 schools on one piece of property. And then I also go back, if you show the numbers of the current schools here, on what sites they're put on. Again, some of my fellow board members will disagree with me when I say 60 acres is a luxury. They might say it's a necessity. But I look at this and I say 10 out of our 15 elementary schools are on less than 10 acres. All of them are on less than 20 acres except for Franklin. Stevens is on 17 acres, and we have McLaughlin on 28 acres. Is 46 acres needed at Ocho? Some might say yes. Probably most would say no. So I look at that and go, okay, well, if McLaughlin's adequate, and I know we don't want to do adequate, we want to go bigger sometimes. If McLaughlin's adequate at 30 acres and our elementary schools are adequate at 10 acres, those add up to 40 acres. If we put 2 schools onto one 40-acre plot, hopefully there's some efficiencies there, and you have less crowded per capacity at that new 40-acre facility than you do at 80% of the schools that we have up on this board here. So while I think it'd be nice, I also don't look at it as just $1 million investment right now. If you go out and buy a piece of property right now and you want to go buy a half acre at $70,000 or whatever it is, and you go, well, you know, 3/4 of an acre would be nice. It's only 100,000, and you go, that's only 30,000. Well, you go put flat work and landscape all of that. There's other costs that we haven't even looked at there for the difference in development between the 40 and the 60-acre site. And then either you're going to be mowing that for the rest of the time you own it, or you're going to be hiring someone. So there's a maintenance cost. I heard Mr. Christensen say that. So to me, adequate. I think it's more than adequate. If you go look at other districts in the state that are putting elementary and middle schools on a piece of property, you're probably going to be hard-pressed to find a set that's on 40 acres or more, or up to 60 acres. You're probably going to be really hard-pressed. Those are usually in cities, I think. So while I think that if the board chooses to go this direction, I support it, and I think it'll be nice, more than adequate, and maybe luxurious for the students that attend that school. We have a bunch of other students here that I believe are getting a good education on much less property per student and less maintenance cost in the lands. And again, if we were a district that was passing bonds left and right and we had money coming out our ears, I would totally support going above more than adequate. But at this time, I think I'd like to keep that money in case another piece of property where we could put another elementary school or another program, whether it's IPAL or something else like that, in a different location. We have that money to spend at a later time. All right, I'll give the board another chance to discuss. I'd like to give the audience a chance at this time to, if they'd like to come up to the mic and have any questions or comments on this topic for the board. All right. Seeing that there's no questions or comments from the audience, would the board like any more discussions or comments prior to me entertaining a motion?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to comment on some of the things the student representative said, which I really appreciate. And one of the things that the board has looked at recently is our policy of use of our school space by the community. And I would include in that use between schools, so that our high school, middle school, elementary schools, we're all part of the Pasco School District. So there's no reason why we can't have schools using between those areas, middle school using the high school using middle. I mean, so this is something that we should view as interchangeable, that having the space for our district, where some schools may be tight, will provide a benefit for that, in addition to allowing our community to use that space. The other comment I wanted to make is when we look at this chart and the sizes, if we look at our most recent schools that we've built, if we look at Franklin, McClintock, and Curie, and maybe just Angelo, since that's one of our biggest. So Angelo, Franklin, and Curie have roughly 800 to 900 students. They're much larger than our other schools. If you look at Markham, they have 400 students on 11 acres. McClintock is on 8 acres and has slightly less than 800, and that's viewed as, by everyone I talked to, and that's in my neighborhood, as much too small. They do have a park right next to it that they have a partnership with the district that is, or with the city, excuse me, that's very helpful, and the community, the neighborhood there just loves that. If we look at Curie and Whittier, I believe those are the partner schools, right? We have, so people understand, Curie is a, I always get these mixed at 4-6, is that right, Ms. Aragon? 3-6, and Whittier is K2. Those two schools are right near each other, and then Ochoa is somewhat near those as well, I believe, or maybe it's within a few blocks
away.
Few blocks. So if you look at those 3 schools, they have a huge amount of property out there for all those students. And so when we're comparing these 9 and 13 acre sites for schools that are much smaller than the schools that we've had to build in recent years because of our overcrowded situation, we're really comparing apples and oranges. We're talking about 800 student elementary schools compared to 400 or 500 elementary schools, 600 that are also overcrowded. So again, I think that's very deceiving sometimes when we're going to compare the sizes of these. When we look at the middle schools, Stevens is widely viewed as too small, so the 17 acres is clearly not enough. And as Ms. Phillips mentioned, we don't get all 40 acres. I think you already had mentioned there that it's already down to 38 or 37.9 or whatever it was, and maybe down further. So I appreciate the discussion. If people want more information, we had a long discussion in the study session, but I'm definitely in favor of this.
I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the purchase of Franklin County Parcel 115-170-070 at a total cost of $1,154,954.50, which includes all fees.
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and second on the table. Additional board discussion? All right, with the motion and a second on the table to approve the purchase of Franklin County Parcel 115-170-070 at a total cost of $1,154,954.50, which includes all fees. With that motion and second, Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Dr. Richardson?
Yes.
Ms. Lankin?
Yes.
Mr. Lehrman?
No.
I'm sorry.
No.
Mrs. Phillips?
Yes.
No.
All right, motion carries to approve the purchase of Franklin County Parcel 115-170-070 at a total cost of $1,154,954.50, which includes all fees. Thank you again, Mr. Nunemaker. Thank you, Mr. Marsh. Thank you to all staff that helped prepare the background information for this discussion and action. All right, next we have agenda item number 11, which is the consent agenda. I would entertain a motion. Oh, sorry, on the consent agenda, we have personnel warrant approval, minimum basic education requirement compliance report, resolution 938, which is unused or underutilized school facilities in neighboring districts, resolution number 939, diversity assurance for elementary school number 16, resolution 940 for the district authorized agents for the new elementary school number 17, Stevens new and lieu replacement, and the new middle school number 4, resolution 941, the new and lieu replacement option for Stevens Middle School, Pasco High School 3, change order number 9, out of endorsement area teacher assignments, Overnight student travel for the Chihuahua High School Future Farmers of America to the state level poultry evaluation in Puyallup, Washington. And overnight student travel for the Chihuahua High School Associated Student Body Officer Team to the Association of Washington Student Leaders Fall Leadership Conference in Yakima, Washington. All right, now I would entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second?
There's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as presented. Ms. Smith, please call the roll.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
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 Mr. Lehrman?
Yes.
Yes.
Ms. Whitney, next we have agenda item number 12, future agenda items.
So a couple board members highlighted their excitement around Ready for Kinder. We are going to have a study session on September 26th that will be our continuum of early learning services, and we're particularly excited about this study session in that we're going to invite our community partners who are helping us. So for example, the Partners for Early Learning, the Ready for Kinder organization, and a couple of Catholic Family Services, I believe, will all come and be a partner with us as we present information to you around some of the great things that we're doing on that continuum of early learning services, which expands beyond ECAP services to encompass a lot of great community organizations that are helping us out. So they'll be here to help partner around that study session, which I think will be good. And then during the board meeting, we have a number of things tentatively scheduled. During agenda setting, we may want to modify, but the plan is an outrageous outcome report reading, a data bite around science, potentially some policies. The health policies will be coming back, potentially a policy around facilities naming, and then Sarah was going to be presenting some information based on a request from a community member that was made a couple meetings ago around board elections. So a fairly heavy agenda we may modify, but those are some potential. You'll also notice that on the study session, or on the action item, legislative priorities were scheduled there. We won't be bringing those back to you until October, so that will be a modification. And then again, I'm sorry, Scott, we are requesting an executive session under 4231-10-1G. Again, we're only expecting it to take about 20 minutes, and we will be requesting no action.
And what is 110G? Evaluation of staff. All right. Thank you for attending our board meeting this evening. We appreciate all the work that all staff has done in getting ready and starting up this new school year. And the board will recess into executive session.